Isn't it just wildly amazing how by the time a person finishes university, gets a job, starts a family, a whole 3 generations of people can be born? In my time, we've seen the Gen Zs, we've seen the Gen Alphas, and now we're welcoming the Gen Beta. And so one would reason or understand why generational gaps is such an issue. If, for example, a millennial is still trying to figure out or understand the thought process of a Gen Z, then they have to now deal with the Gen Alpha. You would wonder how much patience and knowledge to take them to deal with the Gen Beta. And this brings me to the study of philosophy. Philosophers are the greatest minds. Why? Because they look to the future. And this is why I believe that only a philosopher can bridge the gap between generations, because they're constantly looking towards the possibility that the future holds. And so when someone from a newer generation comes up with some initiatives or ideologies, they could see how that works. And so this is a challenge that not just philosopher, but all of us should have the capacity to look towards the future. And so as my mind wandered through this philosophy of understanding generational gaps and looking towards the future, I started to question the source of my thought process, or the source of my thinking. Why all of a sudden have I decided to start looking into understanding the next generation and preparing for the future? And then I realized that I didn't have to read a book for my mind to go there. I didn't have to, listen to someone speak on it to go there. But in my quiet place, I got an inspiration. And that inspiration brought me to the thought of the future and bridging the gap between generations. So why is it important for us to look towards the future like philosophers? In order to impact the future, in order to be better leaders, it is important that we're always looking towards the future. And so today, I'm going to be dropping a few skills on how to best harness this gift that is within everybody to be creative, pessimistic, and looking towards the future. As vague as it sounds, when people say look towards the future, I've come to realize that a lot of people actually find it difficult to forecast because the world is filled with so much activity and there's so much distraction, especially with the invention of the internet and technology. We're stuck often in the now, and due to a whole lot of mental health decline, we find a lot of people that are also stuck in the past. So how do we forge and move towards the future, looking towards the future? In my experience, I do something called spiritual intelligence. I'll explain further. You know how when you're doing a leadership course or a communication course, you're taught emotional intelligence. This is where you understand human behavior and how to best manage different types of individuals. Well, spiritual intelligence is equal to divine knowledge. It's funny and interesting because this term, spiritual intelligence, I first heard at a conference, and it was a technological conference, and we're talking about innovation and the inspiration to get ideas for, new inventions. And the gentleman that spoke says that the source of invention or innovation is spiritual intelligence. So this brings me to my own personal experience of how I look towards the future and how I can bring out that creative side of me. I call him Chukwu. A lot of people call him energy, call him in nature, call it life, call it law. But I say Chukwu, which is God, the source of all knowledge. So why is spirituality so important to this goal of looking towards the future and creativity? Well, human beings are made up of 2 parts. There's our physical parts, which is our physical makeup and our brain and our skin and our bodies. But then we also have a spiritual makeup, which cannot be cloned or cannot be created. Now, this spiritual makeup of the human body gives us the ability to transcend or use our minds naturally to dream and have visions. And it is in the space of visions and dreaming that we get this inspiration for creativity and looking towards the future. I would also call this hope. Hope is extracted from the spiritual side of the human makeup. And so to best harness your skills in terms of creativity and innovation and looking towards the future, one must be able to dream. And this is where spirituality and spiritual intelligence comes in. How do I do mine? I believe in God, like I said earlier. And in the process or in the place of meditation and prayer is where I get my deepest inspiration. And so I sit quietly and a thought comes to me, maybe a problem that needs solving or a social impact issue that needs to be addressed. And as I just ponder on those issues, I start to think about the possibility in a state of meditation and quietness, different solutions and inspirations come to me. And everybody has the capacity to do this. Everybody has the capacity to reach into that side of them. It just takes focus. It just takes trust and believing in yourself. Sometimes you might find that you might have some imposter syndrome when you try to practice this, and you need to shut that part aside out of yourself. Remember, it is just you and yourself first, thinking through this process. And then while you're going through this process, while you're in this state of meditation and reflection, believing that there is nothing impossible, you begin to attract ideas, you begin to attract solutions, you begin to attract an alternative thought process. Make sure they're positive. And this is why, again, I say God, because this unexplainable source of information receipts can only come from a higher power that is unexplainable. And so to better even utilize these gifts, I would advise you to engage in prayer. Talk to the source of knowledge himself. Make it a direct conversation. And I find that for myself, it helps that when I pray to God and have a conversation with him about whatever issue it is that I look to address or that, I'm touched by, I find out that the language is clearer, the inspiration is clearer, the direction comes clearer. And this is why you find that some of the most powerful people in the world practice yoga. Some of them take time to go into isolated places to meditate. And a lot of them also have belief in God and have a belief in faith. So the other day I was listening to a scientist, and just to summarize what he was talking about, and he was saying that the only reason why science exists is because of the existence of God. Because if there was nothing created and if there was nothing before, then what are we trying to understand? So it brings us again back to the source of knowledge, back to the source of existence, and back to the source of everything. So take time out today, meditate, stay in a space of deep reflection. When you're worried or concerned about a certain situation, as opposed to allowing worry take over, as opposed to allowing imposter syndrome take over, as opposed to allowing hopelessness take over, sit in a place of meditation or prayer and look towards advancement. How do we get better? How does this get better? And you surprise you how creative your mind is and how creative that you can be and how much impact that you can have in life and society. So today, I challenge you to develop yourself, to think like a philosopher, to tap into your inner creativity by using the tool of prayer and meditation. Thank you for walking this journey with me. All my love, ASJ.